Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's very special Best Practices webinar. We have a very broad topic today, but it really should resonate with everybody because changes, it seems like we live in an era where change is just inevitable. It's happening more and more. So I just want to welcome everybody. Happy spring. Just love the sound of that word spring. This is going to be a great topic. We have great panelists. We know that COVID brought some major changes where the rules were changing, it seemed like every day or every week at the least. Technology is changing more rapidly than ever. People's needs, requirements, and expectations are changing rapidly as well. We know expectations from the community are just increasing at a rapid pace. Transfinder, we've experienced tremendous change just in the past few years. We're completely revamping our website, making a number of changes, just adding our functionality to some of the solutions that have been on there, as well as new solutions. So, you can't just have something be static. It has to be, what we do today and what some of our solutions do is just leapfrog over something that might have been on the website just even a year ago. So that's changing. My CEO, Antonio Civitella, he's mentioned this one book he was reading called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that just basically embedded in that topic alone is just that you have to change and adapt to meet future needs. So the last thing anybody wants to be is outdated. So today we're going to hear from some amazing transportation leaders from coast to coast, California and New York. So we're coast to coast. Just a reminder that all of our webinars are posted on our YouTube channel. You can find that very easily by just going to transfinder.com. And at the very top, you'll see the YouTube icon. So just click there and you'll see that in the next day or so where we have that uploaded. I also want to encourage everybody to participate by asking questions. Bridget Moore, who's working the back end, will be watching the questions, and as I will be as well. So if you have a question for a specific panelist, you want to make a comment, we really appreciate that. It adds to the conversation. So if we talk about some changes and you're seeing something that we haven't gotten to yet, please jump in and say, well, what about this? Or here's what I've experienced. We love that. So please do that. And the questions area is the best place to do that. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists to today's discussion. Tony will probably be joining us later in the webinar. So for today, right now, I want to introduce James Lopez. He's with Thermalito Union Elementary School District in California, Assistant Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation. Thanks so much for joining us, James. We have Marc Medina with Farmingdale School District in New York, Transportation Supervisor, and Tony Quaranta. He's with Owego-Apalachin Central School District. He's also the Transportation Director. By the way, is there a difference between Transportation Director and Transportation Supervisor? Because I see those two always interchanged. I'm like, is it just you kind of inherit what was the last person's role, or is there a difference?
A lot of it, at least in New York, it boils down to civil service. Civil service has us listed as transportation supervisors, I think for most throughout the state, but a lot of us call ourselves transportation directors if we got state or nationally certified. So our school district can change our title, but I think civil service cannot. So it's interchangeable.
Okay, good. Well, I learned something new there. So there is a little bit of a slight difference there. All right, so what we're talking about today is changes, and it's not about anything in specific. It's really just about overall what have you experienced. I want to first have you all introduce yourselves, and then just as we're talking, think about, I want to look at past, present, and future. So just be thinking about the changes that you've had to implement, maybe you're in the middle of doing, and then things that you're looking on the horizon. But for starters, James, tell us a little bit about your job title, your role there. You just got promoted, congratulations. And a little bit about your district, maybe how many students you transport, your fleet information.
So I am Assistant Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation, primarily focused on transportation though, although I do assist with some of the management of maintenance and operations. Our district is smaller. We got about 9 buses in our fleet. We run about 5 bus routes in the afternoons, 3 van routes. Our buses are all electric, except for 3 diesels that we have out of the 9. Those are for field trips. But for this entire school year and the last half of last school year, we have ran all electric for our regular routes.
So you represent the future of our discussion here, so thank you very much. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and your district.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I'm Marc, Supervisor of Transportation here in the Farmingdale School District on Long Island in Nassau County. I've been in the transportation field for 13 years. I started out as a school bus driver in 2010, became an assistant supervisor in 2016 and supervisor in 2018. We transport about 3,000 students here in Farmingdale.
Very good. That's in Long Island, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So Mets fan, Yankee fan, which one is it?
A big Yankee fan. Big Yankee fan.
I'm sorry I asked. Okay, Tony. Sorry. Tony. You're on mute, I think.
I'm
There
from
you go.
Owego-Apalachin. All right, I'm from Owego-Apalachin. I'm the old guy of the group. I've been in transportation here for 23 years as the transportation director. Owego-Apalachin's about 100 square mile school district with about 1,800 kids.
Wow, okay. Now you said something at the beginning when we had a dry run yesterday, and you also just said something earlier today before we went live about the changes in this industry since you started.
Yeah, this job today, the job today and the pace of the job today is nowhere near the job it was 23 years ago. 23 years, looking back on it, the job seemed a whole lot simpler 23 years ago than it is today. Today, it's just non-stop, start to finish every day.
For those of you who are watching this webinar, if that resonates with you, just type in true, and if it's not true for you, that's okay. Feel free to say not yet, because it's probably coming. So thank you. And then Mark, I got a lot. Oh my gosh, the trues are. Wow. You hit a nail right there, Tony. Already off the bat. My goodness, they're all jumping on this. Mark, real quickly, because you piqued my curiosity about the driver role. You got in with driving first. How did they lure you to become a driver? And this could be relevant, by the way, because we're going to talk about staffing needs. So recruiting you as a driver, but then your career moving into leadership, because I think that's a neat pathway that people can realize this is a career. This can very well be a true career. But tell me how you got lured in.
Yeah. I was lucky enough. There was a district around my way in Nassau County that was looking for a bus driver, a part-time bus driver. So I was in the insurance field, selling car insurance before I did that, and I said let me give it a shot, not knowing what it would entail. So I signed up, and I got hired as a part-time school bus driver in 2010. I just kind of like anything else. I grew up, an athlete, played sports my whole life, and I just like anything else I ever try to do, I try to be like very good at it, and just try to immerse myself in it. So, being a school bus driver was no different. I was able to, communicate with some of the district's most difficult situations, and just really embraced it. 6 short years later, a civil service test came up, and I had the opportunity to take that test for assistant supervisor of transportation. And I was lucky enough, and just kind of the way the stars aligned, that it was under Mr. Joe Williams, who was just very, very, he really gave his passion and life to this industry. And I was eager. I wanted to learn. And I said that in my interview when I sat down with him and the business official. He took me under his wing right away, and got me involved with NIAP locally, got me involved with NIAP on the state level. And, I just kind of was like a sponge. I listened, and all the changes that were going on, it was, I wanted those changes because I saw how passionate he was about it, and I didn't want to let him down. 2018, he passed away, and I was able to kind of take over the operation and keep that ship moving forward like Joe would want it.
He told
mean,
you something. You said he told you something when you came on board.
he did, and that, you know, he said to me, just like in anybody that knows Joe how he was, and he said to me, he says, you know, Mark, transportation is not what it used to be, and this was before COVID. This is before COVID, before the driver shortage, and it rings so true today. You know, I feel like I'm like the luckiest person in transportation. In fact, that story is really really unbelievable.
That's great. That's awesome. This talks about the role of mentorship too. Sounds like he really mentored you. James, we didn't talk about this yesterday. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but your pathway to your role, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm new to transportation, relatively 3 years experience. I started as a maintenance bus driver position back in November of 2019 and got my bus driver certificate in February of 2020. At that time, I had moved from maintenance bus driver to assistant or maintenance operation transportation assistant, which was more like the dispatcher for our district. And we were in transition of changing our routing software. So my background is in more technology type computer application. I used to program welding robots before coming into the school district. And after that, I worked actually in the town of Paradise, which is Butte County, that experienced that fire. And so I did a lot of GIS documentation and mapping of damaged properties and trees for the town of Paradise. And the routing software that we're transitioning to is GIS based. Transfinder, you know, is very good and very familiar to me. So I was able to adapt to that pretty quickly. And now here I am. I have always been driven or pulled towards high-paced working environments. It's what keeps me going. I guess interested, and I enjoy learning new things all the time. And it's this world is definitely fast-moving in transportation.
That's great. Well, during our dry run yesterday, it was kind of neat because was it you, Mark, that was like, I'm going to talk to you later, James, because we're going to talk about EV and you are ahead of the curve on that. And so even though you may be the new guy in the industry, you have the most experience in EV. So there you go.
Yep.
So let's talk about the changes. Bridget, can you move to the next slide for a second? We put this together. First of all, you know, people think of school bus transportation, they probably think of not much change, right? Because you look at the bus and that hasn't changed a whole lot. Even if you go to the next slide, even the new buses, the EV that we're talking about, still have that familiar look, which is a good thing. There's an intentionality with that. I know some people in transportation will say that big yellow bus is like the most overlooked vehicle. You know, you hear about, you know, bus people illegally passing buses. Like, how do you not see that thing when it's blinking red? You know, but for whatever reason. But anyway, look at the similarity still from the past and the present. If you go to the next slide, please, Bridget. Just some of the things that we talked about regarding changes that you either have dealt with, are currently in the midst of, or you see kind of coming down the road. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. Anybody who's attending, by the way, if there's something that's not on that list that you want to add that I can throw out to our panelists, or you want to add your own expertise, and please feel free to do it right now. Add your comments on, but electric vehicles being one of them, implementing new technology. James, you just mentioned your district doing that. Staffing, we talked driver shortage. We can't probably have a webinar without touching on that topic, and the like. So we'll get into this in a moment. Any quick thoughts on just looking at that list? I'll just open the floor up. Mark, you're leaning forward, so I'm going to pick you first.
There you go. No, I mean, listen, it's we were talking about it before. Change is inevitable. I mean, you could take any one of those bullets. you know, what I first think of is the way COVID kind of changed the game, and I think in a lot of ways pushed this industry forward, like technology wise. You know, the need for technology, the need for instant communication, which is on there with the parents, with the schools, with the administrators. You know, the future of technology on the buses, right? When we talk about tablets and getting the routes to the driver, so they're not holding a piece of paper in their hands anymore, right? Those are changes that are coming. I know in my district, next year we're kind of doing a full sweep of technology upgrades and changes. That's going to be very, very interesting and test a lot of the resolve of my contractor partner and the drivers and my staff here. So
It's going to touch. You're bringing in certain types of. No, tell me a little bit about it. I guess I don't. What type of technology are you bringing in, and how deep is it going into your whole staff? Is it just your office staff, or is it going to impact your drivers?
Well, you know, we're making full scale changes. We're going to upgrade to we're migrating over to Transfinder Plus.
Transfinder Plus,
Pro. So that's an inner office change that we're all going to be dealing with. And you know, they take their cues. You know, my team kind of takes their cues from me. You know, I'm kind of like, let's get this done. Let's wrap ourselves in it. Let's learn it. Let's get in it. And you know, I'm going to embrace it. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to trickle down to my team. We're getting tablets on the buses, and we have, again, it's, you know, our drivers are used to, for years we've been doing, you know, pro and printing out route sheets. So our drivers, especially when they're covering routes, would have a paper sheet in their hand, right? You know, we're going to go to tablets. We're going to go to GPSs. We're going to go to, you know, this has changed that, especially, I'm going to say, has a more seasoned, right? More seasoned drivers might have some issues with embracing it. But again, it's coming. The changes are coming, so we're going to have to adapt.
That's good. Tony, you shaking your head quite a bit.
Yep. We've been working on all that technology for the last couple of years. COVID slowed us down a little bit. My advice to Mark would be take one step at a time and make sure you're communicating to all your drivers at every change that goes along. And you're going to be kind of the salesperson for all those changes, making them work or fixing the things that don't work. But he's not wrong. Those are the changes that have to happen. Whether you're a small district or a very large district, those are the kinds of changes that have to happen on a regular basis to stay current, not just with our jobs, but to make the bus drivers' jobs a little bit easier, because there are so many parent demands on us now. You got to almost have the tablet to keep up with them.
That's good. That's good. James, anything you want to add?
Yeah, with some of the change that we've changed with our apps that we were using, one that we found was very beneficial was Viewfinder. You know, every school having the ability to look at routes and give times out when they get a parent phone call has reduced our phone calls dramatically at the office here in transportation. And it's just reallocating some of that workload, and communication has really helped.
Communication is huge. I mean, we do have that. I put that down as one of the items there. Communication needs, expectations. You can oftentimes mitigate just that bubbling over from frustration, maybe from the community if a bus is late or whatever, just by communicating, whether it's a parent app where they can see the bus in real time, or a two-way communication where a parent can just send a note saying, or you sending them a note saying, hey, there's been some flooding on this road, so we're rerouting. You know, our parent app, StopFinder, it's all geographically based, so you don't have to send to every single family on a bus route that's not impacted. You can just send it to the parents of those that are affected on the other side of that flooded road that's going to experience the lateness, not the ones before the flood. Why let those parents worry about it or even have to have a thought about it? So just that kind of stuff really mitigates that frustration from bubbling up. I want to read a couple of things, comments, and then I want to go to our poll, and then we'll come back because I want to, James, you said something yesterday I really liked about how you took a two-pronged approach to implementing change for a group of people that might have been a little nervous to make a big plunge. That's just a little teaser there. So William writes that other changes coming up that he's seeing is an increase in McKinney-Vento population. Actually, that was brought up by two people. Melissa also brought that up. Another was, this is one you guys, I don't know if you guys have heard this. This is being discussed in your neck of the woods, a 4-day school week. So that's enticing. And then lastly, that Frank asks, that was by Kenny, by the way. Thank you, Kenny. And then Frank asked, how do you convince your board to purchase buses that are 3 times the price of a gas or diesel bus? James didn't have that issue because it was covered, right, in California with grants. But we'll get to that because that has intrigued a lot of people here on a panel about what might be available in funding. But that's a great question, Frank. So without further ado, Bridget, can you bring up our poll? And we'll talk over the poll, guys. So just let folks vote on it for a moment here. What has been or will be the biggest change you are facing? Is it the electric buses? Is it upgrading or adding new technology? Is it staffing changes that includes driver shortages or other types of changes like retirements? So think of anything that has to do with staffing, wholesale staffing changes, other mandates that you don't really have any control over, but they might be a state requirement or a Fed. And then finally, just expectations from the community. Now, we force you to pick one, I believe, but so I'm sure all those probably resonate. But if you could take a few minutes, I'll just ask you guys, if I had to make you pick, which one of those would, I'm just going to start again with James and then Mark and Tony. Which one would you have to pick would be the greatest, the biggest change you either faced or are facing? James?
I'd say for us facing would probably be adding new software or just expanding our Transfinder apps and trying to implement parent apps. That's what we're looking forward to. A lot of these other changes are very current and we're going through it and have been going through it.
Very good. Very good. How about you, Mark?
I think the electric bus challenge is going to be, especially here in New York, the way they're trying to, with the deadlines that they've implemented, that's going to be the biggest, big hurdle.
The deadline, what is the deadline?
There's two dates. There's a 2025 deadline or 2027 and 2035 are the two deadlines. Tony, right? 2027 and 2035.
So what's
2027? Everything you buy right now has to be electric, according to what they have right now. By 2035, everything needs to be electric.
Correct.
On the road already, your current fleet, your whole fleet.
And Tony, what would you say would be, of that list, would be your biggest?
Well, the software changes we're still living through. COVID. I thought I was well ahead of the curve, and then COVID hit and it threw me way behind the curve on all those software changes. So getting the people trained, my office staff trained, and then getting it out to the drivers, and then the parent app out to the parents and stuff, that's ongoing. But coming up in the future, there's going to be some staffing changes in my office, but also you take that into account with the electric vehicles. Everything I've read about the electric vehicles, it's a minimum of a 3-year process to get them in and get them implemented, and the infrastructure and all that. And trying to convince you.
Yesterday, can you go through that 3-year process? I thought that was good. And James said it was 3 to 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of actually being able to acquire the buses. But walk us through those 3 years.
Well, as I understand it, the first year is all planning for it. You know, you got to get together with your electric company, your board of education, your leadership team. You got to plan for it, and how much things are going to cost, what kind of capital projects you got to do to get the electric into your building and out to the buses. And then you can start progressing with the infrastructure, getting the chargers in place. And then they say the easiest part of it is actually ordering the bus and getting the bus. And that's a year process in itself. So, but there's no point ordering the bus and getting the bus if you have no way to fuel it. So you have to have the infrastructure in place up front before the bus gets here. And then there's the training of it. Every single person that's going to touch that bus, mechanics, drivers, they all need to be trained on it before you can actually put that bus in service. So it's quite a process. One of the questions was, how do you convince your school board that you need to do this? Well, in New York, it's a mandate. So we really don't have a choice. But to answer the question, I was on a webinar earlier today, and it talked all about comparing your apples to apples. Gather your data. What's the cost of that electric bus, but what's the total cost of that electric bus? How much is the fuel going to cost, aka the electricity versus your diesel fuel? And just you gotta tell your story based in data, and then sell it. Then you become the salesperson for what you need to do.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing also, you know, kind of to piggyback off of that, and we're just starting in the beginning stages too. It's kind of it's a team lift. It's a heavy lift, and it's a team lift, right? You got to get you have to start out with, you know, in the planning phases by getting all the stakeholders involved.
Yep.
When I say all the stakeholders, I mean it's, you know, the transportation department, it's your business official, it's the board of education, it's your buildings and grounds, it's the community, it's the you know, it's a heavy lift. It's the you know, it's, you know, looking into grants and how you can pay for these buses and pay and help offset cost of infrastructure. It's kind of like if you put it on a screen, it would look like a big web, and with one thing in the middle, and it's all got to come together. There's a lot of stakeholders that you need to get on board, and like Tony said, you have to be the you know, gather the data and be the salesperson.
That's good. James, so you have a unique perspective because of you have the mechanic piece of it too. You can tell me a little bit about, so for instance, I have friends that are car guys, right? My daughter gets upset with me because she's like, that gene passed you, Dad. It could have been helpful when my car broke down, right? But I know guys who are car guys that today, with all the computers, they say, yeah, I can't work on it. These are guys that knew their stuff, right? So, so you have to retrain your garage to be able to work on electric buses, correct? And how did that go? Because you've gone before us. It might be a concern. I'm thinking maybe Mark and Tony's staff might be a little worried about, am I going to be able, I've never seen an electric vehicle before. Am I going to be able, I may be great at working at the old school stuff. Am I going to be able to work on the new stuff? Tell me a little bit about how that went and is going.
So it's going pretty well. We had a lot of staff changes recently. Our mechanic left and became a director over at a different district. And so we had a challenge of finding a new mechanic. So he came in new with new electric buses that he's never worked on before. But thankfully we found one that was he is experienced with electrical systems, and mechanics nowadays with electric buses will have to be more electrically minded with electrical circuits and PLCs. The buses that we ended up getting are all PLC driven. It all goes to a computer, and then that computer tells everything on the bus what to do.
PLC means what?
I don't know what PLC means, but
Okay.
programmable memory circuit, something like that.
Okay, I didn't mean to trick you.
Yeah. That's all right.
So before we get to the results, I wanted to read, there was a couple of things I did not mention also. Melissa did mention another change that she's seeing is increased behavioral issues with students. And I think we've heard about that too. I see you guys nodding your heads, Mark and Tony. So I didn't overlook that. That wasn't intentional. And then regarding changes, staffing changes, Steph mentions is very high. They've also already dealt with a software upgrade, and Adam also said staffing was their number one. There was a biggest change. Bridget, can you show us the results?
Sure. So biggest changes, as you just mentioned, Rick, are the staffing changes that people are dealing with or see coming down the road. Upgrading, adding new software, electric buses being up there, and the expectations of the community and district leadership.
Very good. Thanks so much, Bridget. So, and then you can just go to the panel slide, I think, at this point, unless, I don't know, we can keep that up, either one. So, go ahead, Tony, you had something?
Well, the staffing changes, we were talking yesterday, you know, COVID did that to us. People that were old enough, COVID hit, they retired and left, and we had nobody to backfill them with. So we ended up cutting a lot of bus routes and merging bus routes and getting parents to drive. I think, at least for me, it was a complete opposite of the first 20 years. We're encouraging parents to put their kids on the bus. They're the safest place to be is on the school bus. But yet then when COVID hit, now we're saying, don't put your kid on the bus. Parents, drive all your own kids to school. And we honestly thought that we had gotten past that and that we were going to be able to expand our bus routes again to try and encourage parents to put more kids on buses. And then when August came, a lot of people found other jobs. And then I was right back to having a driver shortage again. I've been working all year with only 2 extra drivers. Even though our district took some of the federal money and raised the pay rate, we're number 2 in the region as far as hourly pay. And they even decided to give everybody benefits as soon as they got their driver's license. Everybody comes to school bus driving for different reasons. And so you're always trying to play, what can I offer them versus what are they looking for when you're talking to them in an interview. You know, we've tried all kinds of things and yet we still struggle to get enough people. So I'm interested if anybody else has other ideas besides just increasing their pay and giving them benefits and stuff. I know it's only a 6-hour-a-day job, generally speaking, but there are extra trips, sports trips, field trips, etc. But they're not consistent. And so a lot of people use us as a stepping stone to get their license and then go to the state or the town and work full time. You know.
So I'm going to throw it out to the attendees as well as our panelists. But one question that Teresa asked, and I'll go to you, James. Was it you, James? I was going to say something. Oh, it was Mark. But do you mind sharing what your hourly driver pay is and how many hours?
For Owego-Apalachin, we start at $20.54 an hour. They're board approved at 5.5 hours, but we have a time clock in the hallway. If you come to work every day, it's rarely 5.5 hours. It's more between 6 and 7 hours per day.
Okay, so there. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, there was 2 things so to address Tony's point right there. Thinking to making it a hybrid position might help out also, right? Like, so I know that there are some districts that do like driver cleaners and then guarantee an 8-hour workday, and then anything after that is overtime. So that could help out. I know, you know, districts that do have that hybrid position here in Long Island aren't feeling the effects of the driver shortage as much as other districts. So that's just an idea. I know there's logistics that have to be worked out with that, but that's definitely an idea.
And knowing you guys, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
No, I'll remember.
All right. I wanted to, there was a McKinney-Vento question that came up before.
Yep, that was one of the trends that there were changes they were seeing.
Yeah, and listen, and here in Farmingdale, we've been dealing with a growing McKinney-Vento population through the years. We're over 180 right now, 180 students in the district that are displaced, and we transport most of them. You know, that's just something. What I would suggest, and what I do here is I have a great relationship with my McKinney-Vento liaison, also with my contractor, right? And it's a whole, it's everyone being on the same page again. I mean, it's almost like that's a trend in a lot of different things, but you know, planning for that, because I've been going through it the last few years. So now in the beginning of the year, I have designated routes that come from different directions of the island that I just have in place. And because I know throughout the year, I'm going to get some additions to that. So I have a route coming in from the east, a route coming in from the west, coming in from the north and south. And I build that into my schematic. So I know that when I get additions, those are going to be my go-to routes. And I work it also to where the bell times, you know, I have on one route, I have 3 schools on it because it works with the bell times. So again, those are just.
Well, Mark, 2 things.
Yes.
1, Melissa feels your pain. She said, I have route just like that. And number 2, Dennis was like, can you just share what is McKinney-Vento, just in layman's terms?
Sure. It's that's the law that protects our displaced children in our district. So any children that are displaced, or there's certain conditions that they have to meet. So there's a liaison in a district that's designated for that, you know, for that population. And yeah, so McKinney-Vento are displaced students in your district.
Very good. Not very good that they're displaced, but very good definition. So Kimberly mentioned that. So Tony, you mentioned about benefits, for instance, and guaranteed hours and that kind of thing. And I know you guys already know this, but I'm going to ask it in a different way. Then I have a question for you. I have 2 things for you, James, so be ready. One is, she said, people want to feel appreciated. So that goes without saying. Obviously, the benefits are very important. The pay rate is very important. And knowing you guys, I know that you guys want your staffs to feel appreciated. Just one quick tip, and anybody in the comment section as well. Do you have just a short, here's some things I do to make my staff feel appreciated?
Yeah, I send out, oh, sorry, Tony.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll be quick. One of the things I've learned over the years is to, when they're coming and going, you know what time they're coming in and going out the door to go drive and stuff, is try your very hardest not to be behind your desk and working at that time, because you're not going to get any work done anyway. They're going to interrupt you and they're going to want to talk. Go out in the hallway and talk with them and laugh with them and find out how they're doing and find out what's going on in their lives.
Very good.
Try to make the work environment as pleasing and pleasant as you can, and know that I'm on their side.
That's great. Mark or James, anything else?
Yeah, I would just piggyback off of Tony again. You know, they're part of the team, right? Get to know them. Get to know them on a, you know, get to know about their lives, right? Get to know about, you know, what's going on. You know, a lot of times, you know, you get to see people, you're working with them every day, you get to rub elbows with them. You know when something's off, ask them, you know, what's going, you know, you all right? Or, you know, just that little personal touch could go a long, long way.
Very good. James, anything you want to add?
Yeah, to add to that too, a lot of people like to tell a story, you know, about how their day went, and have all these fine details about it. If they're telling you that story, it's a good thing. They're giving you, my wife always tells me it's called the Prairie Report. You know, it might not make any sense or mean much to you, but to them, it means a whole lot. And if you're getting it, that's good. If you're not getting it, then that's not good. Then something's wrong. And one last thing is Bus Driver Appreciation Day, send out an email. but highlight something about everybody, tell the whole district how great your team is, and really sell them because they need it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So James, 2 questions for you. First of all, there was a question about the EV buses. So they said, one person, Gage, said, I have buses that drive 300 miles a day. So how many electric buses, so I guess, how long do they last, I guess? Like how many miles do you get on a charge, I think might be the question.
So ours were rated for 120 miles. We get about 100 miles out of them. You could upgrade the battery packs and get like 140, they would say. And that's with running air conditioning, heater, everything. We run them in the morning. We put them on the charger. We didn't get fast chargers, so that'd probably help in your situation before the next route. You might have to swap out different buses until the technology gets better, but that's kind of how we run it, because ours run an average of about 50 miles a day. And with field trips, sometimes we'll push that 100-mile limit on those buses and get everything we can out of them.
Great. Then the second question was, yesterday you talked about a 2-pronged approach to implementing a change. Can you share a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so being new to transportation, I had to earn the respect of the veteran drivers. You know, I was the new kid that came in, and I didn't know much about transportation, so I took everything I could from them, learned it, and put it into the routing software. That even included the driver's directions weren't the same as the last software, so adapted it to resemble what they're used to, and always pick their brain, get information from them on how they would like to see it. So started off with bringing it to the table and getting their ideas. I didn't have the advantage of knowing them for a long enough time to be able to lead them in a direction. I needed to lead them as a team.
Okay. And then if you go to tablets, all of a sudden they're going to feel like, okay, you can paint that picture to them about why it's better.
Yeah, bring the tablet to them and it'll be like, here's what we got. Now, is there any changes you want to make to it? You know, now that you like it, now that you're used to this new software, really start to show that it's moldable to what their needs are. So it was kind of first getting them used to it and then get them excited about it, or you could go the other way around, get them excited about it so that they'll get used to it quicker.
William asks, I'll just keep you, since I got you, James, here. What is the best way to introduce the electric fleet to your operation? You know, we get our first 2 next year. Did you do yours all at once, or was it implemented over time, or?
Well, we did get all 6 at once, and they all got certified at once. But we implemented them one at a time into the routes because, you know, new technology, we didn't know what to expect. I took the first one out to, you know, in case it broke down or something, at least it's on me. It didn't break down and it was a comfortable ride, and all the kids were, you know, starting to ask their other drivers, why don't we get the cool bus? You know, it looks like an airplane on the inside. And so another driver's like, okay, well, I'm going to take one out now. Next day, another bus is out there. And so it kind of built up the anticipation momentum. And as the more hesitant drivers saw that the other drivers weren't having an issue, they built up the confidence to want to try it. And then once they got in those seats, they didn't want to leave them. They, you know, heated Recaro seats and air conditioning. It was very comfortable.
No going back.
Yeah, you can't get them off and put them on diesel anymore.
That's awesome. Oh, by the way, Melissa mentioned in terms of helping your staff feel appreciated, wrote that their district provides a nice breakfast and gifts on Bus Driver Appreciation Day, and cards. The band plays for them, so they make a big deal out of it. So I wanted to read something real quickly because was it you, Marc, who sent this to me from School Bus Fleet, the current edition?
Tony.
Sorry, Tony, I got to give you credit. By Lauren Fletcher, Become a Pro and Grow and Adapt. So this is 5 points. and this is, so you guys are leaders, and so it's like Mark said earlier, you got to sell it, right? You got to sell the change. I think James showed, I'm in it with you. I'm trying to, I understand where you're coming from. Not everybody likes change. Some people they love change, and they love what happens when we're not doing the same thing year over year, and other people get nervous about it. So her 5 bullet points, I won't read them all. I'll just read the bullet points. Embrace change, don't fight it. When you hear, but it's always been done that way, don't be afraid to ask why. Number 3, lean on others. Number 4, incorporate technology. I'm a big fan of that one, of course. And then 5, never stop learning. I think you've all mentioned learning, I think, a little bit during this talk. Anything that we're missing, or anything you want to expand upon on that list? Again, embrace change. When you hear we haven't done it this way before, ask why. Lean into others, incorporate technology, never stop learning. Any one of those resonate, or any others we should add?
Yeah, I think those are good. They will make a lot of sense. I would add, communicate concerns accordingly as change is coming. Communicate any concerns so they could be addressed. Staying open-minded and adaptable. I believe that was said. Strong relationships. Keep the relationships, within your department and stakeholders strong, because you're going to need that when the change comes. You're going to need to lean on each other. And keep in mind that you got to plan for roadblocks, right? It's not going to be smooth sailing the whole time. You're going to have to, adapt, right? You're going to have to maybe pivot and go another direction to get back on track, but that's all part of the process of change.
So Mark, yesterday during our dry run, you used a word. I typed it here, so I know you said it. Trepidation. And so your district is going from Route Finder Pro, and product we've had for a long time, to Plus. And you said, and I'm using it as a backdrop, not a commercial, but anyway. But you said, I have trepidation myself moving from Pro to Plus, and even though it's the future. So part of it was, you said it's okay to share that, right? That you're in it with them.
Sure. I'm a big believer in that. Share your feelings. Be honest. Because in my experience, even just in life, right? There's probably more than one person that's feeling the same way you're feeling. So putting that out there would probably generate some very good discussion out of that. So it's normal to feel that.
It's normal to feel. You also use a term I hadn't heard before: situational leadership. What is that?
Situational leadership is something that it means that not everybody is wired the same way, right? So what might make somebody tick might not be what makes the next person tick, right? So being in a position of leadership, and it's why it's so important to get to know our team, because situational leadership is such an effective way to go, right? You might be able to, someone you might be able to get on a little bit more. Someone else you might have to kind of be a little bit more empathetic, but to get them going, it's just kind of knowing your team and changing your approach to to get to the goal.
Tony, you said something yesterday as well about understanding, like, say there's been something that's been brought to you. It's not a mandate where you have no choice, but something else that maybe you don't totally understand why the need for the change. And you talked about, you personally seeking to understand the whys before you try to bring them to your team. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You do a lot. We do a lot of reading as leaders, like you said, school bus fleet, lots of webinars, going to lots of conferences and seminars, and you're hearing about all the things that other people want to do and other people are doing, but not everything is always going to apply to Owego-Apalachin or to Farmingdale or whatever. So you got to pick apart what's a good idea and what's not a good idea, and then ask yourself, why would that be a good idea for us, and how can I implement that? And it involves going to lots of professional development and leaning on, we talk about leaning on our team, but also part of our team, our other transportation supervisors and directors, talk with them and find out. We're not the only one. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're not the only ones doing this. There's a whole lot of other people doing it, and I'm sure somebody can give you, like we're doing today, some tips and insights on how to do it a little bit better.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Tony's saying, it's a great point. Our team is expansive, right? And every state, I know James, you're in California. Tony and I are in New York, and I'm sure on, as far as people that registered for this webinar, we have people across the country, I would imagine, right, Rick?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So every state, I'm pretty sure, has their own transportation association. So to get involved with that is, like Tony said, it's so important to make those connections. And
That's a good advertisement. I'm going to highlight this in a couple slides down. A webinar we're doing in May is going to feature some of the executive directors from other state associations for people with transportation. And by the way, I got to give credit. It was Dave Christopher's idea. I was at the NIAP winter workshop, and I miss him because he used to be a regular on these. And he goes, Rick, you know what I'd really like to do is I'd love to sit down with some other state association executive directors and pick their brain on how they're dealing with things, just like you guys talk about. We learn, why do we do the best practices webinar? Because it's people see themselves in you and they can learn something from you, and maybe you learn something from them. I'm going to share an idea that somebody had in a moment about making their staff feel appreciated. So that's why we do these kind of things. But that's really good. So we are going to do that in May. I'll share that date in a minute. That's good stuff. Okay, Adam said at Yuma, we have a program. This is for, again, making staff feel appreciated. We have a program called High Five. During the month, all drivers will recommend, nominate, or thank a driver. At the end of the month, management conducts a high five ceremony to recognize 2 drivers every month. The high five employees get a certificate, a gift card, and a picture on the high five. I'm assuming it's the Walk of Fame. I see walk, but because I would assume high five Walk of Fame. That's kind of a cool idea. It doesn't cost that much money. Sometimes the little things go a long way, I always say. All right. So anything else in terms of like when you have to make it, you have to implement a change that maybe you don't fully believe in, but you have to because leadership is requiring it. Any tricks on that? How do you sell that?
For me, usually it takes me like overnight going home and pitching it to my wife and talking to her about it, and getting my own brain wrapped around what they want and how they want it and why they want it. And then when I'm in a better frame of mind about it, where I can convince myself that, okay, we can do this, it's a good idea, we'll do it, then I can come in and talk to my staff and get them on board with it. If I come right back and I know I don't agree with maybe something they said, there's no way I'll be able to sell it. So I got to get it right in my own mind first, and then pitch it to them.
yeah, I agree with that, Tony. You can't sell something if your heart's not in it. You know what I mean? Because your body language, the words could be coming out of your mouth, but your facial expression and your body language would be saying something totally different.
Yep.
Right?
I ask myself why I don't agree with it. I had a boss that taught me that I really appreciated about him. He would always ask for everybody else's perspective, and he would use that word. What is your perspective? Help me understand why you don't want to do this. If you have a better perspective or idea, we'll try it. But if I don't agree with it, or I can't relate to it, then let's try my way first, then yours. And so thinking about that, it's everybody has a reason for doing something. And if I'm not agreeing with it, maybe my perspective needs changing before I could bring it to the team. And then once I can understand both the side that didn't want to do it and now the side that does want to do it, I'll have an easier time trying to bring the team to the same conclusion.
That's a great
That's good.
question.
Yeah, that's very
Why
good.
don't I agree with this? Is it Rick DeRico and just it wasn't my idea? I've told this to Tony several times. I'm like, Tony, our boss, Tony Civitella, I said, I wish I came up with that idea. Like I wish I came up with that idea. But it's like, if you don't like something, say, well, why is it because I didn't come up with it? Is it because I know the practicalities and it's going to be difficult to implement or whatever? That's a really good question.
Another
All
thing,
right.
I'm sorry, just one more thing I just wanted to mention, Rick, is, change, like staff changes, right? Bringing in different types of doing new hires and position changes. We create a culture, right? Where in our work environment, and when you change personnel, culture can spread, whether it's good or bad, right? So to be successful, I believe that we create a culture by starting with like myself, right? I got to work hard. I got to show up every day. I got to be engaged, be dialed in. It could put a strain on an established culture that we work so hard to create the changes, but that's something that we need to keep an eye on, right? We're talking about adapting to change, but then there's a change that you don't want to happen, and that's we have to look at that also, right?
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah, protecting that culture that you have created if you're at a good spot.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go around the horn real quickly with a one takeaway that you want either them to bring back to their office, to their team, to their leadership, whatever it may be. What's one takeaway you want every one of the attendees to have? I'm gonna start with you, Tony, go to Mark, and end with you, James, and then we'll wrap it up.
I would say one takeaway I'd like to give to everybody is to remind them that you're never too busy to get out of your office and talk to your peers and other transportation people, learn and grow from them. You are not in it alone. All these changes that are taking place are happening to all of us. And if we all work together, we'll all get through them together.
That's good. Very good. Mark.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to keep it on me. What I would take away is, and I said this on prior webinars, that a reason why I love doing this stuff is because I always get something from this discussion. And one thing that I'm going to take is from James, the one he just said is get perspective, get that perspective from if someone doesn't agree with you, ask a question and see if you can find commonality with that. So
asking questions too is always very disarming if it's done in a sincere way. Like, so tell me what am I missing here? I've asked that before. Like, what am I missing something? And I don't say it in a pejorative type of way. I was like, am I missing? What might be missing? Because I might be reading between the lines that are not there. So asking questions can, if it's done in the right way, can be very disarming, and you're trying to learn. James?
I think with change, there's opportunity, and a lot of us are facing staffing changes. In our organization, we just got over the cusp of that, where most of our people are 3 or less years that they've been here. We got a few that are still, veteran employees, but in our department, we're almost all new. But that was only possible because they changed the job description. We're all year-round employees now, 8 hours a day. Every bus driver gets that, and they do other utility work, and it creates a good culture. And that's where the opportunity's at, is with change.
That's great. Next, when you have new people too, you don't have that one thing about we haven't done it this way before. You know what I mean? So you have a freshness. You don't have the baggage. I hate to say that because it doesn't mean an old timer. They add so much too. So, but sometimes when things are fresh, they don't have a perspective of like why you can't do things because it's all new to them. So there's something beneficial to that. I like that. Change brings opportunity. That's good. Okay, Bridget, if we can go to the next slide real quick. I want to thank you for all those great takeaways. just want to throw this out there that if anybody has a story, we are looking for all types of stories. And then this is not all just Transfinder clients, it could be anybody. We are always trying to get as many of the best practices, lessons learned, any tips that we talked about this before, we learn from each other. So anything that we could benefit from as an industry, please share it with us. Just go to mystory@transfinder.com. I will tell you, we will reach back to you. And who knows, I may ask you to be on a webinar. So that's not a requirement, but I will probably ask you if it's a good tip. It'd be good for people to hear from you directly. And if you go to the next slide, I already hinted at this. So on May 25th, same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to have 4 to 5 state association for pupil transportation executive directors. And there might be some others as well in that mix. But I'm going to actually be trying to reach out and find what questions you would like to have asked of this panel. So be thinking about that. Feel free, again, you can just email mystory@transfinder.com if you have questions you would like to have asked of that panel. But for now, I just want to thank again our panelists and hope everybody have a great rest of their day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.